Sup, y'all? Welcome to Across the Forge. This is the second episode of a kind of newish show that we do here at Cross Forge Gaming, where I, your humble host, dadgummit, YouTube, mute. So I don't want to hear myself. Let's start over.
Okay.
Sup, y'all? Welcome to. It's not going to start over for anybody in the stream, but it's just for my sake. Sup, y'all? Welcome to Across the Forge, the second episode of a little show we do here where I, your humble host, Patrick Ryan, otherwise known as Huge Cop Patty or HCP, interview somebody that I find to be interesting for one reason or another. Today, we're going to be talking with Jenni Hicklin. She does cosplay, and she also has a little ministry that we're going to let her plug and tell us about and all that cool stuff. But before we do that, we have to watch the animated logo because those are the rules. So here it goes. There we go. The lovely logo that everybody knows and loves. At least I think they love it. If not, too bad. My guest tonight is, like I said, Jenni Hicklin. Say hi, Jenni.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
So I originally contacted you about doing this show because I knew that you did cosplay and I was really interested in that. But then around the time that that happened, you went off and did some crazy, like start a ministry. So I want to make sure that we get to talk about that because I think that what you're doing is really important. And as much fun as cosplay is, I think the ministry is probably a little bit more important than cosplay. So tell me about it. What is it? Where did it come from? Just you have the floor.
Itself?
Yes.
To tell you the truth, it's kind of a whirlwind thing of, I really didn't expect to be doing a ministry. Me, myself, I actually don't like being in a leadership position. I actually prefer to help out. Like be on the sidelines of someone else makes all the big decisions and then they give me a job and I put my all into the job. But it was just something about the single ministry itself. It's called Rise and Shine Single Ministry. And it's a ministry for single Christians who are beyond college age and they're adults. But it's not just like 20 to 30s young adults. It's also divorced couples, people who have lost a spouse, people who decide that maybe they don't want a romantic relationship. But it's for anybody. It's an encouraging and supportive site to help people who are just single Christians wherever they are in their walk in life and how they can flourish where they are. And the inspiration came from it was actually a Google search because I was getting really frustrated. I'm 26 years old and I had been single for a very long time. I've only been in one really serious relationship before, but it didn't work out for multiple reasons. And it was just one of those situations of, I was almost 30 years old and I had no plans whatsoever for marriage. And I was getting kind of frustrated for a while, but I came to terms with it and I decided this is where God wants me to be. So I started to look for devotionals. I started looking for help, study help. I found nothing. All of it was like, you need to prepare yourself for marriage, or it was like for teenagers, or telling people of how I need to develop myself as a godly wife before, and all these rules. And it didn't make sense because I do want to get married one day, but that's not where I am at this point. I want to flourish where God put me. And whenever I started getting frustrated, I started venting on social media and asking other friends who've been single for a long time. And I found out that they're kind of in the same boat. Mm-hmm. Had worse situations than me of where they actually had people from the church telling them, if you're 25 years old or older, or if you're in your 30s and you're not married yet, you're doing something wrong. Your faith isn't enough. And that is not what Christianity is about. And it lit a fire in me of where that's wrong. And I just I couldn't find any devotionals out there that was really what I was looking for, of what I believe that I could share with other people. And so it just kind of, the idea came to me of, why not just make one? And at first I was terrified. I did not want to do it at all. Because like I said before, I am not a leadership kind of person, but God really put it on my heart that I'm a research person. I like to speak publicly about things. And of course, I don't think I have all the answers. I don't. But I am the kind of person that if somebody has a question, I will search with all of my heart to help them as the best I can and to answer in a way that I believe that God is guiding me towards. So that's really where it came from, and it's just developed from that.
Yeah, I remember because we're friends on Facebook, and I remember you posting on Facebook. Do you have the? I'm hearing myself through your microphone. There we go.
Are you?
Yeah, not anymore. I was. That's weird.
Okay.
Okay. Let me go back to my what I was saying. So I remember seeing on your Facebook timeline you were lamenting this issue, and I remember being in a similar place with some of the people who are watching this know, and I think you are very familiar with my struggle with pornography and looking to the church, and there's a lot of books and stuff out there, but I couldn't find any churches that were actively having meetings and had a ministry specifically geared toward this. I went to a Celebrate Recovery meeting once, which is supposed to just kind of be a catch-all for people that have these vices and stuff. And I went to one meeting, and the only reason I didn't go back was because it was me, a lady, and the leader. So first of all, trying to talk about your sexual addiction in a co-ed environment, if you ask me, is a bad idea.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Yeah, and the lady, so you know, it was just like I said, it was just two of us and then the leader, and the lady went first with her addiction, and her whatever it was something like she was a shopaholic is what it essentially amounted to. And then they come to me, and I'm like, I look at pornography for 3 hours a day and I don't know how to stop. And it just felt like the two things weren't really on the same level. I understand in God's eyes, a vice is a vice, a sin is a sin, but the earthly consequences of these two things very, very different. And I didn't. Yeah. And so now someone who I'm starting to learn a lot more about myself and how I do have leadership qualities. It's not something that I ever aspired to be. I like being on, if there were someone on the other side of this camera that I'm talking to you now, I like to be that guy. And now I'm on this side of it. So I think it's really cool that you decided to step up and do this. So how are you working with your church at all? And if you are, how have they received this?
That's actually kind of an interesting story, because I originally tried to duck out of it. I'm a little bit ashamed to say this, but the idea came to me near the beginning of the year. And because I didn't want to be in that leadership position, I actually went to my church first. And I said, is there a singles ministry? And they said, yeah, you can join with the other college kids. I'm like, it's been a while since I've been in college. And so like, I have my own house and pay bills. Like, I tried it. And, there was a great group, and they were all like single college kids. And like, it was a great group of people. But kind of like how you said, if you're going to be in that type of community group, there was just something missing about it, because you don't feel that connectivity. And there's something about being a single Christian, especially when you're older, of where you kind of feel like you're outside of everybody else. But the thing is, I think one of the biggest lies that Satan ever tells us is that we're alone in our struggles. Mm-hmm. And how could that possibly be? Because anytime I would talk to my other single friends who are over college age, they all felt the same way. But going through the church, trying to find single Christians or a single Christian group, there was nobody. There was even a women's ministry. I went to one, and it was all women in their 30s and 40s who talked about their kids, talked about their spouses, lovely stories, great people, but there was just no connection at all. And it was like there was a part of me that wasn't really in it, find a ministry. What's up?
Mm-hmm. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still. Am I lagging?
Okay. Yeah, just a little bit.
Okay. No. I'll talk a lot slower. How's that? So
that's fine. It's I don't know if it was you going to YouTube, or because I actually noticed, because this is how we record Original Gamers podcast, and sometimes I think they froze, but then when I go back and watch the video later, everything was fine. So it might actually be on my end.
Okay.
Yeah, so continue.
So going through the church, trying to find a single ministry, there wasn't one. And whenever I tried to talk to them about maybe leading a group through the church, because we do community groups, and we, like, the church, it's not really with the church itself, but it's kind of like members will host other families and they can do whatever topics they want. But it was like nobody was really interested. No one really knew what I was talking about, which was interesting to learn, because I don't know, I'm not sure if it's the same for everywhere else, but where I live is like a very conservative area with a lot of older German families, and some of these people, they lived here for years, and most of my friends around in this area married, have kids, and lovely families. It's very, very few people that are still single and still go to church, if you get my meaning. So
right.
And
because everyone knows that when the first thing that Jesus spoke when he was able to speak was, all y'all single people need to get married. I'm pretty sure that that's in Luke somewhere. I don't know.
It's Second Opinions 12.
Yeah. even though he didn't get married, so it's like, Jesus, what's up? You were single.
Well, I don't know. Be careful. Some people will debate you on that, of whether Jesus was married or not. But that's for another interview for another day.
We'll have you back so we can debate that.
And so searching around the different churches, even going online, there are sometimes podcasts, there was just nothing. And if the podcasting articles that I did find, they were very misconstrued. It was all preparing for marriage and dating advice. And yeah, I couldn't find what I was looking for, and it just became more and more obvious to me that God was saying, you need to do something about this. You found the hole, now you need to fill it. So
yeah, it's amazing how when you have a need and you can't find someone out there who's meeting the need, or as you described it, when you find a hole and you're in the hole and someone needs to fill it, how God will be like, hey, I showed this to you so that you could actually go do it. And it is, I know exactly what you're talking about with how the church handles family. So my pornography addiction also resulted in my first marriage ending. To my knowledge, there are not ministries for people who are trying to handle the fact that they just got divorced. Occasionally I can find one or two here and there that are geared toward women, but the guy is just out of luck.
yeah.
And I didn't actually feel God leading me to fill that hole. He gave me plenty of other holes to shovel dirt into, and just not that one. But yeah, it is a problem, and I'm glad that you're doing something about it. So what exactly is it that you're doing?
Honestly, the best way to describe it is that I found a place where the church is hurting, and I'm just doing my best to try to help out. And I in no way think that I'm a minister, but I do try to be a teacher at least, and to try to answer questions. But what exactly I do in the detailed sense is I have a website. And on this website, and I also have a YouTube channel as well, of where I will post recordings, podcasts with PowerPoints. I try to have summaries on the blog page, as well as the verses to memorize, what passage we'll be going over, what we'll be discussing, and then the prayer for the week, and then an area for prayer requests if anybody would like that as well. And it's a way to communicate with other people of how to have a podcast. I wouldn't technically call it a podcast, because it's usually about 20 minutes, and podcasts usually about 45 minutes to an hour. So I just call it like an online Bible study, of where you have the lesson, and then you have the text section of where if you want to discuss questions, study questions, versus if you just want to read through that. And then I try to wrap it all up in on the website to try to make it more organized, because I thought about doing it just on the YouTube channel, but it got way too complicated very quickly. I'm kind of lazy in this sense, and I knew that other people might be lazy as well, of where they're interested in looking at it, but they just want a quick glance for it, and I just try to provide that for the best I can to like reel people in more.
Right. So for those of you watching or listening, all of the links to all this stuff that she just talked about can be found in the video description below. There's her website, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and her email, all down there. So you can internet stalk her if that's what you're into. You probably shouldn't, though. I think Jesus frowns on that kind of stuff. That was the second thing Jesus said after he said that all y'all single people need to get married. He said, don't stalk people on the internet. And everybody went, what is the internet? And he's just like, don't worry about it. So you said you have a YouTube, and I don't have that in the description. I'll make sure that gets added one way or another. I don't know if that's because I just missed it, or maybe I didn't get it from you. Worry about that later. So how often are you updating? Is this something you do daily, or just whenever you can squeeze in a few minutes? How's that going?
Weekly. I tried to update weekly, being on Wednesdays, either in the morning or the afternoons. Mm-hmm. I tried to go on like Saturdays to kind of coincide with Sundays, so have it up on Saturday evening and be ready on Sunday. But I got really busy really quickly, and especially when I had very sparse spare weekends as it just became too much. It became too much. So I decided on Wednesdays, it made more sense to do it on a Wednesday, since most people are going to church anyway. Yeah. So if they just want to do a devotional, or if they were stuck inside for whatever reason, like, it's an option.
Right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
And you're creating all the material yourself, or are you using other resources to help out?
They're all researching. Yes. Put that. I'm not just. That's one of the things that a lot of people warn me about, is I do not like think of a question and then fill it all with scripture. Mm-hmm. I try to find. I pray immensely about different subjects. So, for example, the last topic that I had uploaded was, am I called to singleness? Because that is a common question that people ask. It's either, am I called to a single life, or why am I not married yet? And those can kind of be answered in the same way. So I had quoted Jeremiah 29:11 it talks about how the Lord declares that he knows the plans for your life, to give you a future and a hope, for the good of you and not for calamity. And around that passage, by describing about how God knows the plans for our lives, that we can trust him. He's in control. And I use that passage to answer those questions for people. So I don't just answer questions using a bunch of Bible verses, because I've read Bible studies like those before, and they didn't really make sense because it seemed like it was too much cherry picking. Mm-hmm. So what I've done is I find passages that are relevant, and then answer questions that people do have, research, and I look at different articles, and even so some articles like the dating advice articles I look through. John Piper is actually one of my favorites right now, because he does have a Desiring God website where he does talk a lot about relationships and about our roles as Christians ourselves. So he's one that I really do enjoy researching his work and then being inspired through him from what he teaches. So all the research, the content, the website, all of this is stuff that I made myself.
Cool. Do you live stream any of this stuff, or do you record it and then post it when it's done?
Not yet, just because this camera that I'm using right now is on my laptop. So my rig that I built my own PC, which I had actually originally wanted to use for live streaming. The camera I got is not compatible with Windows 10, and there's a patch for it, but I can't find it. So once those technical difficulties are finally figured out, I will start live streaming a lot more. Mm-hmm. But for now, it's recorded podcasts, YouTube videos, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Okay. You do some, you're playing PUBG and giving people advice on how to stay single, that kind of thing.
How to stay single.
Well, no,
how to be single.
Most people don't need help staying single. They've got that covered. They don't need advice. Just don't leave your house and you'll be fine. So now that it is a thing, this is real, it's starting to, to grow and build traction, I suppose. Have you considered going back to your church or another church and being like, hey, I got this thing, I want to work with you, let's make something happen? Or are you like, no, this is my thing and I'm just gonna do that for a while?
It's for my church that I go to. It's one of the larger churches. It's not a mega church, but I've started the process of trying to start a community group or try to have some sort of, because one of the things I'm wanting to do is they're actually having a leadership institute, like where they teach you how to be a leader with the church. So very slow progress, but eventually, right now, God is telling, it's like praying about it. I don't think God wants me to put myself in that position yet of where I'm more fully active in the church and trying to push this ministry for my local area. But I feel like he wants me to flourish where I am here, work on getting the word out there, like by doing interviews like this, telling people about it, perfecting my craft. And then once I feel like I have a better audience and I have my feet under me of really knowing what I'm supposed to do, and make those small steps, like with the Leadership Institute, talking with the leaders of the church, trying to develop relationships with them, it will eventually become that, but it's like not yet.
Yeah, that makes sense. So is it geared toward one gender specifically, or are you trying to keep it as neutral as possible?
It's absolutely not. I want to be all inclusive as possible. With one of the things, kind of a side thing that kind of upset me too, another reason why I wanted to make my own support group for single Christians was that a lot of the articles you find are geared towards women. And I don't believe it's supposed to be sexist at all, but I think it's almost like men are more underrepresented in this category, because people assume if once he gets out of college, he has his own job, they're naturally going to be looking for a spouse. Well, not always. So
right.
It's never cut and dry like that. And it really did upset me. It made me a little bit angry, actually, whenever I found out that not a lot of men were represented, because we're all in this together, in my idea. It's not women are wanting to find a husband and men are just kind of awkward and they don't get out much, but it's nothing like that at all. It's about trusting God and developing who you are as a person in God, and also building that relationship with him, so that if you do get married one day, so many people think that marriage is the end all be all, that once they get married, they're going to be full again, but that is not the case at all. If you are going to be a mature Christian, you need to start working on that now where you are. And that goes for men, women, whether you're in college, beyond college, if you're divorced, if your spouse has passed away. I don't want it to be focused on one group of people, because it really is, from researching statistics and stuff like that, of where there are a lot more, not only are millennials and X and Y, not only are we waiting longer to get married, but also some marriages, we're getting married more often. So some people, it used to be 1 or 2 marriages per person, now it's 3 or 4. People are becoming divorced more often. And I don't want to make any judgments on that, because sometimes I don't know your situation. I don't know what you're going through right now. But if you are single and you need that support and encouragement, I want to be able to provide that for you. And if you're male, female, wherever you are in life, I really believe that God wants to use you where you are, and he can. And you are absolutely not alone in this. If you're watching this video right now and you feel like you're alone and you're the only person, you are not, because right here, I was like that for 26 years, wondering what was wrong with me. And not even only recently, I learned that it's not something that's wrong with me. It's where God has me right now. So.
Right. I know my church is, they kind of do everything on a yearly cycle. Once a year, they'll do it at the movie series, and it's always the same time of year. And they also do this with family. And family in the sermon series is being delivered is always a mom, a dad, and a bunch of kids. And, you know, that it's great for me. I'm a dad, I'm a husband. You know, I am remarried, and, you know, so, but I have always wondered when listening to those sermons, like, how many people in this room does this not apply to? And not to suggest that, oh, well, it doesn't apply to everybody in the room, so we just shouldn't do it. But more thinking, you know, 6 months from now, we're not going to do a sermon series on, well, here's what it's like to be a Christian and single. And if we did, it would be, so here's how you go find your mate. And that's just so backwards. I'm sure you're familiar with, Paul even says in one of his epistles, and maybe you know exactly where it is, but he actually tells the people that he's writing to that he wishes that everybody could be single so they could devote 100% of their life to Christ, because those who are married, and not that this is a bad thing, but when you're married, your responsibilities now are divided between God and your family. And divided, he said it a lot more eloquently, because they're really not divided, because by doing what you're supposed to do for your spouse and for your kids, you are doing the Lord's work. So they're not really two different things, but
you're responsible for more people.
Yes. Okay. And if you're single, you can go out into the middle of the desert and do nothing but study God for 3 years or something like that. And you can't do that when you have a spouse. So, yeah, I think this ministry is really cool. And what's that?
I said, well, you technically can go on the desert. It's just frowned upon. So
yeah, because God will be like, look, I'm glad you want to get to know me, but your wife's back home wondering how she's going to pay the rent. And you're out here eating crickets or whatever. Are there crickets in the desert? I don't even know.
It's
locusts. That's probably it. Yeah. Well, yeah, this is really cool. I hope this gets really big, and that the church will. I like to hear when young people are like, let's stir the pot a little bit. Let's maybe, you know, bump some elbows here and there, and not like in a violent way, and not because you want to hurt anybody, but, you know, just mix it up. Keeps things interesting. That's what I like. All right. Speaking of interesting, you like to dress up in very elaborate costumes and go out in public like that.
Yes.
So what's that? How? Well, okay. First, why did you start wanting to do that? And I don't mean that in a condescending way. Just, you know, where were you in life when the first time that you said, I want to dress up like insert character here, and I'm going to spend hundreds of dollars doing it?
It started when I was about 5. Not even kidding. I was very young, and Halloween was always, I know it's probably going to tick a few people off, but Halloween was one of my favorite holidays, and it was just because of dressing up. And even as a kid playing, one of my favorite things to do was I would grab my little brother and I would dress up as a superhero, and then he would be my sidekick, and we would go on adventures together. And like I even had a big patch on my shirt. My mom made me one of where it was like a Superman logo, and she even gave me a cape. And like, even from being very young, dressing up as a hero, as a creature, or even creating my own costumes, just something about it was just so much fun. And even creating my own weapons, like taking things apart and building props and stuff like that. I had a natural inclination for it. And it was one of those things of, I was actually not allowed to play with some of the toys, because one of my rules was, if we're going to buy you this toy, you can't tear it up. Because I just like taking things apart and making it into something else. And if it didn't work out, I wanted to see how things worked. And over the years, it kind of ebbed and flowed. And during Halloween, I've been Catwoman, Batman. I've been a gypsy before, and I never really stuck to one character, but I just enjoyed dressing up for things. And especially when I could go out in public and show everybody, it was my favorite thing ever. And then when I became a teenager, I took home ec. Back when home ec is one of those of where they teach you basic home skills for those high schoolers who are no longer taught home ec. And one of them was how to use a sewing machine. And the first thing I ever made was a pair of pants, and I was just so proud of myself that I could hardly contain it. And then my mom, after I had stopped taking that class, after I graduated, my mom also taught me how to use the sewing machine, how to make my own outfits, and I do make some of my own clothes as well. But it wasn't until about 3 years ago, through the Geeks Under Grace, of where I discovered cosplaying, and I had no idea what it was.
Okay, so that was pretty recent then, because Geeks Under Grace is not that old of a thing.
Yeah, and not very old at all. I would say between 3 to 4 years of seeing people painting their faces, because face painting is actually my specialty of what I do. I do full body painting. I do like face painting. I have a necromancer that I do of where it's a full face skull, and I have the costumes and stuff like that. And whenever I was sharing it on Geeks Under Grace, someone said, "Oh, do you cosplay?" And I was like, "Well, what's cosplaying?" And they started sending me pictures of where it was entire outfits, of where it was props that I used to make all the time. It was people making their own outfits, and it was face painting and all of these characters. And originally I thought it was just anime, but no, it's any character you can think of, whether movie, show, book. And I just became absolutely enthralled with all of it because it was this brand new world I could do. And I still remember my first cosplay I ever did was a Slytherin student. And I'm a diehard Potter fan. And for the first convention I ever went to, I had the full Hogwarts uniform on and I made a wand, and I had my hat, and I had a tie, and all together, the entire cosplay probably cost me about $30. Like nothing, it was just pieces I could pull together, and I was just so proud of myself because they talk about fangirling. I went full fangirl the entire time because this is the first time I ever seen so many geeks in one place. And I think I took like over 500 pictures that day because I was just so excited because it was this new environment I learned about. And it's all just history from there. My cosplays became more intricate. I did a forest fairy. I did an ice queen. And then my pride and joy is my Viking version of Belle. And I even made my own axe, which most people who follow on my feed on Facebook, they know about it, but I actually have it right here.
Yeah, pull it up.
This right here. I know, 1 sec. I can't see my thing down there. Here we go. This is my pride and joy. I made it out of EVA foam, curtain rod. I mean, like this itself cost altogether about $30 to make and stuff like that. And this was my first like major prop that I had made on my own, and it's literally just made together by cheap materials. But this is my pride. I love this. This will probably be in my house long when I'm 70, retired, and have all kinds of other things. It'll still be in my house. I love it so much. And for my Battle Bell cosplay, I had armor, a cape, and that's just one of my favorite ones. And what's really funny, kind of a funny story I want to share, is whenever I was doing the photo shoots of it, if you follow my Facebook and you see that I'm out in a field by some trees and the wind is blowing and I look very dramatic holding my rose and my axe in the other hand. And like in between, around the 4th picture that I had taken of that, somebody had called the police on me. Now, mind you, it was it was a public access road. I had made sure, but it was just kind of like in the back. But apparently some of the neighbors, they had seen me, and they had seen me getting in and out of my car. And all of a sudden, this state trooper comes down the road. And the state troopers around here are very nice, and he was very understanding. But he got out of his car, and he goes, "Well, hello there, man. How's it going today?" I was like, "Good." And I have like the face paint and like blood and stuff. I'm like, "Yeah, just doing really good." He goes, "Oh, yeah, all right. What you doing?" And I was... the best part of it, I think it's really awkward but funny to tell later, is when you have to explain what you're doing to other people. I said, "Well, I'm dressed as a Viking version of Belle." And he goes, "Oh, why?" I was like, "Well, it's for the Indianapolis Comic-Con." Thank goodness he knew what that was. But I was like, "For the Indianapolis Comic-Con." He goes, "Yeah, my son's doing that. He's doing a cosplay too. I should have known." And like he's just started But we talked about that for a good 5 minutes or so. But it was one of those situations of where, you know, I wasn't in trouble, but it's just
Right.
one of those really awkward situations that you laugh about later. But I was actually kind of scared.
Could you imagine being on the front page of the newspaper, getting put in the back of a car and you're in your costume, he's holding this.
I think about sitting in jail like that with other people. So what are you in for? And I'm like, cosplay.
Been fantastic. Christian weirdo caught swinging axe around in the forest spends night in jail. They're like, is this an Onion article? Like, no, this happened. This is a thing. So, what's the most you've spent on a single costume?
It wasn't actually a costume. It was a commission I had done for somebody. I had made for a friend of mine, the Kalina Ann from, if have you ever played Devil May Cry?
I'm familiar with the series, yeah.
Okay. Lady has a Kalina Ann, which is basically a big bazooka gun with a blade on the end of it. And I made a prop version of that. It didn't shoot because she was going to take it to a convention, and for most conventions, they don't allow projectiles. So it wasn't a fully functioning one, but it was like a massive just bazooka gun with a blade. And I think I spent well over $100 on it. And it was just because it was with PVC material and it was with a new type of foam that was, because the usual this right here is actually a camping mat. So something like $10 you find at Walmart. However, for the Clean Ann, that didn't work because the foam wouldn't stick to the PVC. So it was literally, I had to test adhesives. I had to test new paints. It was a brand new experience I had to learn about. But so originally I budgeted about $70 for it, and I ended up spending closer to $200. But I really enjoyed the experience. Like for something like that, I don't mind the expense as much because that's now knowledge that I can use for other props as well.
Right.
So it was a learning experience. I now know more about glue than most people have forgotten. So ask me any questions about adhesives and I will most likely know which one to use.
All I know is glue makes things stick together and you shouldn't eat it. That's where my knowledge of glue ends.
That's good enough. That's good enough.
So when you said you were commissioned, like somebody paid you to do this?
Yeah.
So you're making money off of this hobby now.
Yeah.
Kind of. Yeah.
More the prop building. The outfits I'm not good enough at. I don't think I'm good enough at making like the really intricate outfits and stuff like that. So I'm gaining more experience for that. However, the prop building, I've done that for years. And one of the things that I wanted to do was help build props for other people, because I was having people like, hey, yeah, you made a sword, can you make me a sword? Or yeah, I want to have a helmet, or I want to have like this type of face mask. And like people always ask me questions, and I decided, hey, what if I made a little bit of money off of this? Would it be so bad or anything like that? And sorry, dog was barking. And but yeah, a few commissions. I do make props for different people, and it's not necessarily money. For example, I'm good friends with the young lady who does the Xena Epic Yarns, and so I had actually traded a stormtrooper mask or not the stormtrooper mask. I had a mermaid blanket, and I traded the Kalina Ann for that. And so I do trade, or but some people do come forward and they're like, well, I don't have a lot of money, but I would like to would you be able to make this prop? And like, I'll work with you. But it was just one of those things of, it was an opportunity to kind of have a mini business on the side.
So this may be a better question for the person who actually designed the bazooka in the first place. But if you're in close enough combat that blade on the end of the bazooka is useful, aren't you defeating the purpose of a bazooka? It's
a similar aspect to a musket, of where the Kalina Ann does take very long to load, and so with the blade at the end of it, so for example, if you shoot and miss, and by the time they get up to you, they've already gained about 20-25 feet on you if they're sprinting at you, so you can use that blade to cut them off quickly.
Okay. When you say bazooka, it is shooting some sort of explosive, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because like the idea of a gun blade is like, I mean, that makes sense. We actually have something like that. You stick a bayonet on the end of your rifle and you essentially have a gun blade. But I could see where in a fight, you might actually be close enough to somebody this would be useful. Like a bazooka, I'm like, don't you kind of want to be like way back there before you fire this exploding missile out of it? Like,
Yeah.
what do you got a knife on the end of your bazooka for? But video games, that's why. Because why not? And yes, I'm very familiar with Christina of Xena's Epic Yarn. She gave away a squid when I was doing Splatoon 2.
See, but I got 2 of them back here. They're adorable. You need to go to her site and get them because they are absolutely adorable.
Yes, and since we're plugging her, I'll make sure I add her website to the description. But if you're impatient, you can just get on Etsy and search for Xena's Epic Yarn, and you'll find all that cool stuff. All right, the controversial topic that everybody likes to talk about with cosplay, especially when you're dealing with Christians, sexy cosplay. That's a big thing. What are your thoughts on people that do that kind of stuff? Or not really to judge them, but just the idea of what might be considered a little bit more adultish cosplaying.
It's a style of cosplay. Really, that's it. And to tell you the truth, the majority of like the sexier cosplays that you see, it's nothing more than what you would see at the beach.
Right.
And honestly, I make no judgments on it. It's just not my style of what I do. And the only quarrel that I have with it is that some people think that's the only type of cosplay that there is that it's young women between 18 and 26 who are models and they just model these outfits. And I've had some very inappropriate comments said to me before when someone, like a male coworker, like not from the job that I'm at now, but at a previous job where he said, "Oh, so what kind of cosplays do you see? You know, can you send me pictures?" It's like, no, I don't do that. And it's that type of stigma. And the goal that I have with my cosplaying, I'm not against any type of cosplaying because it's a way for a community of people, a community of geeks, and even creators and artists to come together and share what they love about the geeky community, about their movies, shows. And if you really want to see like friendships just blossom out of nothing, it is the greatest thing to see like a Spider-Man and Deadpool, and these people have never met before in their entire life, and they just go running towards each other and hug in the middle of a convention. They've never met each other before, but they're suddenly the best of friends. I really love that about the community, and that's what I want to promote. So I don't, like, my style of cosplay is more of like armor, and I really enjoy like book related cosplays and stuff like that. So that's just my personal style. And as far as my opinion on Christians, it really depends on, honestly, I just want to say pray about it, because we do need to represent ourselves in a way that is godly and representative of Christ. And if you feel like you're convicted in some way, you need to pay attention to that, because it is the Holy Spirit trying to guide you. And if you are, because it's not even just like sexy cosplays either. Some people, for example, the Dresden Files, there's one of the evil leaders, he smokes a cigar, but he's another really popular people that like to cosplay. But I've had questions before of, they really smoke and they drink, of, as a Christian, I don't like to do that. Do I have to do that with the cosplay? No, you don't. And it's just like of where, like Starfire. Starfire is another DC comic character that a lot of people really like to cosplay as her. But some people aren't comfortable showing that much skin before, but there's ways that you can accommodate it. And that's another thing that I love about cosplays as well, is that it's really your interpretation of a character. And just because a character is sexy doesn't mean you have to be immodest about it if you don't want to be. Just because a character is more covered up, for example, in Pride and Prejudice, they like the long Victorian clothing, and tell you the truth, conventions are very hot. It's hundreds, sometimes thousands of people in very packed areas of armor cosplays and like fully covered cosplays. You're going to sweat really hard. You got to remember to drink a lot of water, or you will sweat yourself to death. And sometimes I actually make the joke of some of the people that you see of like one convention I saw was like a humorous interpretation, but it was a sexy Darth Vader. And my joke that I told people, the joke I told people was like, no, it's just the fact that the full Darth Vader costume is hot. She's just did want to sweat to death. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But I really don't believe you should pass judgment in the cosplay community, because that is not what it's about at all. It's about a bunch of geeks coming together and sharing what they love with the world. And that's my honest opinion.
Yeah, and I think the games press, and or really just geek press, nerd press, whatever word you want to use to describe that, enthusiast journalism, I do think they contribute a little bit to this idea that cosplaying is just a bunch of young girls who want to show off some skin, getting together and putting on sexy costumes. Because anytime you go to like IGN will have their best cosplay of Comic-Con 2017, and even if out of the 20 pictures or so only one of them is a scantily clad woman, I guarantee you that picture was the thumbnail for the article. And if you're not the kind of person who would click on it, you just scroll up and it's just a bunch of sluts and costumes, then
it's don't call them that.
That's what. Well, that's no, if that wasn't my words, it's just thinking of that. If I didn't mean to. I didn't mean to offend. There goes my YouTube career because I use that word.
No, it's just kind of like a small pet peeve of mine and stuff like that. Of a lot of people who are in the cosplay community, we've met each other. Like one cosplayer that's under a lot of stress usually is Jessica Nigri. I think you pronounce her last name, of where, she is known for having more sexy cosplays of more revealing outfits, but she's an amazing cosplayer. And I've met her before, and she is very nice, and she's very good to her fans. And like, it's just not my style, but some people have called her very nasty names, and oh
yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, don't. It's a little thing.
The fact that there are people out there who think that because a woman is dressed like that at a comic book convention, that is basically them inviting you to go over and say things to that, or even touch them. It's like, no.
That's a human being. Please, cosplay is not consent. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Well, cool. I thought of a question related to your ministry that I had intended to ask you before I transitioned and then just forgot. And this is just, I ask this of anytime I'm speaking with a female who's taking a leadership role in ministry, because I know there are people out there who are thinking this, and so I want to represent them whether I agree with them or not. If anybody came up to you and was like, well, you're a woman and you shouldn't have a leadership role in the church, I mean, has anybody ever said that to you? And if so, how did you handle it? If not, if it did ever happen, because trust me, someone's going to ask you this one day, how would you respond to that criticism?
To tell you the truth, it's normal for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have a bachelor's in business management. I am officially trained to be a manager and to be in a leadership position. I don't necessarily like it all the time, but so you see me, I'm 5'4". I have big blue eyes, blonde hair, and I have a higher pitched voice, and I'm always happy to see people in the business world, and especially in the male dominated industries. I am not taken seriously at all sometimes. And it's not meaning that it's good, but I'm used to it, of where I just let it roll off my shoulder. Of like, I have had that before. I've had somebody tell me before I used to be a project manager, and I was in charge of the IT support as well as the programmers, and it's an all male crew. So they're all in their 40s. So not only was I the youngest person, but I was a very young female in charge of a lot of adult males. And I have had comments before of, it's not very Christian. You shouldn't be in charge of men. And, you should be more worried about finding a husband. You should be more about, like, what about your children? I was 24. I thought children was the last thing on my mind.
Right.
And even so, there are plenty of like very professional women who have children, have entire families, and they have amazing careers. It's not, you don't give one up for the other. And you never ask a man, whenever Trump came into office, the first question they didn't ask was, so what's going to happen to your kids? What's going to happen to your grandkids? How are you going to deal with being away from home so much? It's just, it's irritating, but I'm used to it. And especially with being a leader in the Christian community, I try to be as compassionate as possible, of where I try to understand where they're coming from, because different denominations believe different things, because sometimes it is an honest question of, how do you feel about being a leader, or how do you feel about being a female minister? But there are female ministers. And whenever somebody does bring it to my attention, as if I hadn't noticed, that I am a female leading others in a ministry, I try my best to explain that I prayed about it a lot. I feel like this is where God is leading me. And if they really do disagree with me, if they just say, you don't need to be doing this, I walk away. Because at that point, it's no longer they're trying to learn from me, they're trying to understand. It's them trying to convict me about something that I do not feel convicted about. I actually feel led to do this. And I don't need that kind of negativity, in other words. So.
Right. Well, I think what you were actually led to do is find a man to come do. No, that's that's ridiculous.
Do you really want to start this right now?
No, I don't. Because I would lose. Because I've actually read the Bible and know what it says about that. And I know that is a losing argument. So, because you have to take the Bible as a whole. And yes, Paul said what he said about women in the church. He also said that to a very specific church that may have had a problem with, people getting out of line. And I think people who just latch on to that passage and won't let go of it are forgetting the fact that in the Old Testament, there was a judge of Israel who was a woman. And that means she had to have been leading the Israelites back then. There's an entire book of the Bible dedicated to Ruth. You've got I can't remember the story, but there's a woman. Again, this is Old Testament. Drove a tent spike through some dude's head because the general or whatever who was pursuing him wasn't there or whatever. So there's this idea that women have a place in the church and it's to sit down and shut up is just the dumbest thing in the world. But it comes up, and so whenever I'm having a conversation with a woman who is taking on leadership roles, I feel like, well, let's ask them this, because I'm curious to know how they would handle it. And some women kind of back down and they just, well, I'm like, no, that's not what I want you to do. I'm challenging you on your position because I'm curious to know, are you able to stand up for yourself, and do you know what the Bible says about this, so that when some punk who actually thinks the way that I'm pretending to believe comes at you, you'll know how to defend yourself. So you did a good job. You pass.
Thanks. I'm like that as well, of where I truly believe that Jesus saw, I think it was the Pharisees as well as the law, who tried to put women in a little box. And honestly, I believe that one of the roles that Jesus came for was to empower women as well, because the woman at the well, when the disciples went out afterwards, and there was a female leader that was a part of a big women's ministry. One of the first women's ministries was by a very bold woman who, she was hard-headed and she wanted to go out. She asked questions. She wasn't afraid to be bold, and she wasn't aggressive, but she was not afraid to show that she was curious and that she wanted to have a relationship with God. And Jesus really started all of that. And even Lee Strobel, he talks about how one of the ways that we know that the gospel is very true is because the first two people who saw that Jesus was resurrected were two women. Now, in history, because at that time in history, women didn't have a lot of rights, they weren't really recognized. To recognize the role of women in the gospel of Christ is a major thing. And if Jesus did not care, if God did not care about women, if he didn't want to empower and make us bold, courageous, fiery hearts, but with a gentle spirit, he wouldn't have done that. So. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, that's good. Um, Before we go, you have anything else that you want to say or plug?
Oh, for my cosplay, for the ministry, it is the Rise and Shine Single Ministry, and then my cosplay that I do, I try to update it fairly regularly, but my cosplay is Metaled Warrior, and a lot of it is where I do like my prop ideas, my cosplays, and so I share it on my regular Facebook feed, but that's where I really share the majority of like the details of what I do, of my different projects that I do. But it's called Metaled Warrior.
Cool stuff. So links to all that stuff are in the description below the video. It is rise and shine ministries.blog. And then she's on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and of course the cosplay, as she just mentioned, is also on Facebook, where you can look at pictures of all the stuff that she's done. And we got 5 minutes. What games you playing right now? What are you really into video game wise? This is a gaming YouTube channel. So PUBG, you're into that PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. Are you good at it? Do you think you're good at it anymore?
Yes, I got to rank 11 the other day on my second try.
Well, you've done better than I've ever done. That's for sure.
I've been playing it. It's one of those games I kind of bought ironically because I didn't think I would play it, but a group of friends that I just met, they're really into it, and so they got me to buy it, and I started playing it, and I actually have a lot of fun with it because it's literally a battle royale of it has a skill set to it. You almost think it's just grab a gun, grab an outfit, and that's it. No, there's an entire learning curve that you have to get over. And so, and especially when you get to chase after people and hide and basically be like James Bond for say about a 30-minute round or something like that, it's very fun.
Yeah, I think the longest I've lasted is maybe 5 minutes, and that's into like there's down to like 80 people left or something like that, and every time I don't even know the guy is there, and then just I'm dead, and I'm like, well, okay. I guess I'll go play something else. So no, it's I enjoy what I have played, and I'm actually playing that for Patty Plays Pathetically this week, so that that'll be fun.
We should start a group, have a CFG group or something like that, have a multiplayer night.
We are actually working on that. I talked with my two partners, and I want to start having, I think I picked the first Friday of the month. I want that to be dedicated to community game night. So we do things like PUBG or kind of feel out what people in the community have. Because like I game on the Switch mostly, but there's all of 4 people in our community that actually even own a Switch. So getting a party together. Well, I guess that's enough to do like Splatoon or something. But if you wanted to get a bunch of Mario Kart or something going, you need a lot more people than that. But a lot of people play Hearthstone. A lot of people play PUBG. That World of Warships seems to do, pretty well. So yeah, that's in the works. I'm sure October, which actually, what is the first Friday in October? That's the 6th. So this is not me promising that that's going to happen, but it's in the works. So we're shooting for that, and surely we have a tournament coming up. I'm not the tournament guy. I'll have to ask the tournament guy if that's coming around. And we're looking to spread that into other games, because so far it's been nothing but Hearthstone, and that's easy to do because it's free. So if somebody's like, oh, I don't have that, it's just go download it, and then you have it, and you're not expecting somebody to go buy a $30 to $60 game to play something. So
yeah, because I totally don't do that.
Oh yeah, I've never done that.
Every paycheck.
Yeah, and thankfully my wife is very supportive of this. When I told her, babe, I want to do this online gaming ministry because there's a severe lack of the church in esports, and I want to do this. I feel like a normal person would have been like, you're just looking for an excuse to spend money on video games. But she was like, no, you're right. This is really cool. I think you should do that. I'm like, wait, really? Sweet. So She's pretty, but I'm sure if every paycheck I came to her and said, "Babe, I want to spend $60 on a video game," she'd be like, "We don't even have a house." And I, okay, this is true. We should do that first.
My boyfriend's kind of like that too. We're both gamers, and so it works out nicely.
Yeah.
If you're a gamer, you spend a lot on games. Just date a gamer. It's a lot easier.
Yeah, it works. She's becoming a gamer. She for the longest time was ahead of me in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
And by a significant margin. And I guess technically she still is. I just beat Calamity Ganon before she did, but she's got way more shrines than I do. So, all right. I think that's going to do it for us. So like I said, look in the description below this video for links to all of Jenni's stuff. Of course, you can follow us by clicking that subscribe button, and make sure you click the little bell so that when we do stuff like this, you will get notified, because apparently just subscribing isn't enough. You have to do two things. I don't really understand it, but I don't run a multi-billion-dollar video sharing website, so obviously somebody getting paid more than me knows what they're doing. You can check us out at crossforgegaming.com. That'll take you to our main Facebook page. We're also at facebook.com/groups/crossforgegaming, where you can see all of our community stuff, and you'll find information about when we put up our videos and when we're doing community game nights and the tournaments and all that fun stuff. We have a Twitter. I don't know that anybody's really keeping up with it, but it's there. It's twitter.com/CrossForgeGames, because somebody already had CrossForge Gaming. You can also give us money by going to patreon.com/CrossForgeGaming. If that's your thing, you will get access to some exclusive content, like the unedited versions of Patty Plays Pathetically. And when I say unedited, I don't mean like I took out all of my cussing, because I don't do that. I mean, we take the hour video, we bring it down to 10 minutes. That's what's on the YouTube channel for everyone to see, but you can actually watch the hour-long recording if you're into that. I believe you're a Patreon subscriber, are you not, Jenni?
I am, yes.
Yes, and we greatly appreciate that. You can also buy t-shirts like the one that Jenni's wearing by going to pro.teechip.com/stores/CrossForgeGaming. Here, I'm going to... You weren't up. Pull it up again. Never.
Just stand up.
There you go. You can stand up. There it is. That t-shirt right there.
I'll just talk over you.
Yeah. So there's that. Also, we had a charity stream through Extra Life. That is... We got a goal of $500 to raise this year for Le Bonheur Children's Hospital, so you can donate to that by going to extra-life-team/35691, or just go to Extra Life and search for CrossForge Gaming. You'll find that. Last time I checked, we were at $80. I'm gonna go ahead and look right now. Yep, we're still at $80, and we're gonna be participating in Extra Life's game day on November 4th. So there'll be that going on, and we'll have more information about that. All right, I think I'm done with my plugs. Jenni, it's been a pleasure. This was very, very fun. Enjoyed talking to you.
Good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
No problem. And love you guys. We'll see y'all later. Bye.
Bye.